This lecture is entitled Perspectives on Sexuality by Dr. Bev Knox. We will review structural functionalism, conflict theory, symbolic interactionism, queer theory, and feminist theory. According to an article on the subject matter, scholars recognize that sexuality continues to be an important and defining social location, and that the manner in which sexuality is constructed has a significant effect on perceptions, interactions, and outcomes. We will first review structural functionalism. When it comes to sexuality, functionalists stress the importance of regulating sexual behavior to ensure marital cohesion and family stability. Since functionalists identify the family unit as the most integral component in society, they maintain a strict focus on it at all times and argue in favor of social arrangements that promote and ensure family preservation. Functionalists such as Talcott Parsons in 1955 have long argued that the regulation of sexual activity is an important function of the family. Social norms surrounding family life have traditionally encouraged sexual activity within the marriage-family unit and have discouraged activity outside of it, such as in premarital and extramarital sex. From a functionalist point of view, the purpose of encouraging sexual activity in the confines of marriage is to intensify the bond between spouses and to ensure that procreation occurs within a stable, legally recognized relationship. This structure gives offspring the best possible chance for appropriate socialization and the provision of basic resources. From a functionalist standpoint, homosexuality cannot be promoted on a large scale as an acceptable substitute for heterosexuality. If this occurred, procreation would eventually cease, according to this theory. Homosexuality, if occurring predominantly within the population, is dysfunctional to society. This criticism does not take into account the increasing legal acceptance of same-sex marriage, or the rise in gay and lesbian couples who choose to bear and raise children through a variety of available resources. Next, we will review conflict theory. From a conflict theory perspective, sexuality is another area in which power differentials are present and where dominant groups actively work to promote their worldview as well as their economic interests. Recently, we have seen the debate over the legalization of gay marriage intensify nationwide. For conflict theorists, there are two key dimensions to the debate over same-sex marriage, one ideological and the other economic. Dominant groups, in this instance, heterosexuals, wish for their worldview, which embraces traditional marriage and a nuclear family, to win out over what they see as the intrusion of a secular, individually driven worldview. On the other hand, many gay and lesbian activists argue that legal marriage is a fundamental right that cannot be denied based on sexual orientation, and that historically, there already exists a precedent for changes to marriage laws. For example, the 1960s legalization of formerly forbidden interracial marriages is one example. We will now review symbolic interactionism. Interactionists focus on the meanings associated with sexuality and with sexual orientation. Some believe that femininity is devalued in U.S. society, and those who adopt such traits are subject to ridicule. This is especially true for boys or men. Just as masculinity is the symbolic norm, so too has heterosexuality come to signify normalcy. Prior to 1973, the American Psychological Association, APA, defined homosexuality as an abnormal or deviant disorder. Interactionist labeling theory recognizes the impact this has made. Before 1973, the APA was powerful in shaping social attitudes toward homosexuality by defining it as pathological. Today, the APA cites no association between sexual orientation and psychopathology and sees homosexuality as a normal aspect of human sexuality. APA, 2008. Next, queer theory is an interdisciplinary approach to sexuality studies that identifies Western society's rigid splitting of gender into male and female roles and questions the manner in which we have been taught to think about sexual orientation. According to Jagos in 1996, queer theory focuses on mismatches between anatomical sex, gender identity, and sexual orientation, not just division into male, female, or homosexual, heterosexual. By calling their discipline queer, scholars reject the effects of labeling. Instead, they embraced the word queer and reclaimed it for their own purposes. The the perspective highlights a need for a more flexible and fluid conceptualization of sexuality, one that allows for change, negotiation, and freedom. This theory believes that the current schema used to classify individuals as either heterosexual or homosexual pits one orientation against the other. This mirrors other oppressive schemas in our culture, especially those surrounding gender and race, black versus white, or male versus female. And now we will review feminist theory. The feminist view of sexuality is grounded in the belief that gender inequality and power imbalances influence and shape sexual experiences, desires, and identities. It recognizes that societal norms, cultural expectations, and patriarchal structures often limit and control women's sexuality, while simultaneously perpetuating harmful stereotypes and double standards. Here are some key elements of the feminist view of sexuality. First, sexuality as a social construct. Feminists argue that sexuality is not solely a biological or individualistic phenomenon, but is heavily influenced by social, cultural, and historical factors. Second, intersectionality. Feminist analysis of sexuality acknowledges the interconnected nature of gender, race, class, and other social identities, highlighting how different forms of oppression intersect and shape sexual experiences. Third, sexual autonomy and agency. Feminism emphasizes the importance of individuals having control over their own bodies, desires, and choices, free from coercion, violence, and societal expectations. Next, challenging gender norms. Feminists critique and challenge traditional gender roles and expectations that limit and restrict individuals' sexual expression and experiences. And lastly, sexual violence and consent. Feminism highlights the prevalence of sexual violence and the importance of consent in sexual encounters, advocating for a culture of consent and the eradication of rape culture. Please be advised, this is an educational, academically sound psychology course by Dr. Bev Knox for adult student learners. Lecture content include discussions and representations of human sexuality, theoretical perspectives on sexuality, sex research, sexual anatomy, sex hormones, sexual arousal, attraction and love theories, gender and sexuality, sexual orientation, variations in sexual behavior, sexual coercion, sex for sale, sexual disorders, and sex therapy, ethics and religion on sexuality, and sex laws. Before beginning the course, please be mindful of your capacity to witness and respond to videos, books, and images of this content material.